Major spoilers, but honestly, I'd be shocked if I ruined this movie for you before every single TikTok and tweet that wantonly ruined every surprise from day one. Ridiculous.
Are you ready? Fuck yeah, I'm ready.
In just 1 week, the MCU has irreversibly changed. Not only did Deadpool and Wolverine join the cinematic universe, but the biggest off-screen post-Endgame questions we probably knew the answer to were finally answered. Will Chris Evans return? Will Robert Downey Jr. return? Yes. The so-called Multiverse saga kicked into high gear with more legacy hero returns than No Way Home, and with Avengers the Kang Dynasty, Avengers vs X-Men, Avengers Doomsday, a mere 2 years away, it seems like the overarching story could finally be closing in on itself and giving us that very elusive Phase 4 and 5 enigma. Payoffs.
I am soaking wet right now.
After several years of varying highs, but mostly lows, oversaturation drowning out what has worked, a lack of character reprisals meaning no one has been steering the ship, many hoped Deadpool and Wolverine would be a return to form, a signal that the MCU might be back, the movie to quote-unquote save the MCU. Has it done that? Well, it's a matter of perspective. Certainly Marvel's most loyal fans seem happy, and the release has proven once again that Twitter is certainly a vocal minority. The recent box office bomb of the Marvels has seemingly been turned around with a huge opening for an R-rated movie no less. In financial terms, I'm sure Feige and his gang of miscreants are indeed thinking this has turned things around. But how about the storytelling? Could this signal a return to the standard of the 2010s set by the MCU? Well, yes and no. Of course it's all a matter of subjectivity. I hate that I have to point that out more and more in videos that are so obviously opinion-led. But hey ho. For me, this movie was a lot of fun. It had plenty of staples that harkened back to a brighter time for superhero movies, and I think there's plenty you could take away from it. But I also think it exemplifies a lot of the problems with the post-Endgame run and the future of the Multiverse saga. There's also the fact that even if this was the best thing since Infinity War, it still wouldn't change the casting decision announced over the weekend, but we'll break down all that juicy stuff down alongside breaking down the characters, the story, and yes, the gratuitous cameos.
Cameos.
I'm the Wolverine.
Tell me what you thought of Deadpool and Wolverine in the comments below. The highs, the lows, the best action scene, the best cameo, all that good stuff. If you want to get notified of more full-fat videos, then please subscribe with notification bells on. Or, if you find YouTube is failing to tell you even with the bell clicked, then why not join the Patreon as a free member where you'll get regular updates when a new video drops. There's also plenty of paid goodies on there too, like the recent 2.5 hour full fat podcast on more Deadpool and Wolverine. We don't really get studio comedies anymore. After about 2014 they started thinning out, and by about 2016 to 2018 they really died a death. You'll get the occasional game night, and that's about it. Gone are the raunchy and stupidly hilarious comedies that permeated throughout the 90s and 2000s. It's such a shame, because we're at a time where it would be great to get more people going to the cinema, and I think a no-nonsense balls-to-the-wall comedy is exactly what would do well. In the wake of that seriously lacking, I find myself kinder on something like Deadpool and Wolverine. I think if you look at it as a full-tilt superhero movie and you're expecting a well-crafted story with well-sketched arcs and a satisfying emotional payoff, this is going to disappoint on some level. It's no X2 or Spider-Man 2. If you're happy with this being a full-on comedy that gets stupider and more bombastic as it goes on, then you're in for a fun time. The multiverse shenanigans are about as well told as the time travel mechanics in Hot Tub Time Machine, and I'd never deduct points for that. But then again, that movie has Craig Robinson singing Black Eyed Peas going incredibly hard for no apparent reason, and this movie definitely doesn't have that.
And the bass keep running.
There's been a ton of multiverse movies the last few years, with varying degrees of success. One thing I think makes it tough is that you really have to bend the established rules and put square pegs in round holes. The world of the previous Spider-Men don't really mesh with the MCU aesthetic. The the world of Burton's Batman doesn't really fold into the DCEU. You have to hand-wave away why people are supposedly the same person, even though they look and sound completely different. It takes a lot of explaining, and sometimes the payoffs can result in obscure fan service and wonky CGI.
This is what I'm talking about. Big slow motion action sequence.
Deadpool gives you way more flexibility in the multiverse. Because of his comedic fourth wall breaking meta nature, you can get away with way more, and you can be more ridiculous and call out more inaccuracies and have more fun with the concept. If one Wolverine looks like Jackman and the other one looks like Henry Cavill, who cares? This is all tongue-in-cheek. Deadpool knows that none of it matters anyway. Although I think overall the emotional depths and arcs in No Way Home and The Flash are stronger, warts and all, Deadpool and Wolverine is the best multiverse movie we've had so far. It actually can flex with the multiverse in all the ways those other movies want to, but it's unburdened by the need to take it all seriously. The meta angle on the legacy heroes wanting good endings for themselves, how they have been tossed into the void and forgotten by audiences, works really neatly in a way No Way Home and The Flash could never do. The action was pretty damn good. I think David Leitch can cook up a better action scene in Deadpool 2, but the sandbox Sean Levy has here is just more exciting. Deadpool versus Wolverine twice? Oh, go on then. It was savage, the choreography was cool, and in particular the car set sequence was full of stabbing and carnage. The legacy hero fight was a lot more shaky cam, but I suspect that was due to scheduling rather than it being a creative choice, because the rest of the movie's action was shot really clearly. Even so, the individual moments in that scene are great. Gambit exploding dudes.
Boom, you looking for this?
X-23 slashing up Juggy. Blade doing literally anything. All of it was great every single solitary second. Oh!
So exciting.
Tyler Mane Sabretooth could have gotten more of a fight, but it was pretty satisfying for a seasoned Wolverine to just absolutely body him with one swift strike. Wolverine always gets beaten up too much in the movies anyway. It was nice to see him consistently kick ass in this one. The inciting incidents for this movie's plot to kick into gear are so shoddy and poorly thought out that it loops back round to being funny in places. The Happy Hogan cameo was easily the worst scene of the movie. Not funny, chock full of references, and giving us the meetup we never asked for. It's all supposed to serve Deadpool's character, seeing him want to be an Avenger, but I really don't think Deadpool is the kind of character who should give a toss about that. He's already saved loads of lives, he redeemed a kid from becoming the Rainmaker. Why does he need to be part of the Avengers? I don't think it meshes well with his carefree and glib attitude. And how the hell did he cross universes back in 2018 anyway? He had a time travel device. There was nothing in the manual about universe hopping. You don't even see him doing it. There's just a title card explaining Deadpool made it to the MCU, and then bam, next scene he's back in the Foxverse. Only a superhero movie that's more comedy than drama can get away with that. This movie had what so many MCU movies dream of, an easy way to link up to a previous movie without being intrusive to the current plot. Deadpool fucked with his own timeline at the end of Deadpool 2, literally resurrecting several key supporting players in his time stream, including Vanessa. What he did is exactly the thing that would put him in the crosshairs of the TVA. He's so ripe for pruning, he screwed with it more than any of the Lokis ever did. The TVA could have turned up and cited this exact reason, and it would have been perfect. And it would have had perfect parity with both the Foxverse and the MCU. It's such a slam dunk of continuity lining up between both universes that it seems like the powers that be planned it before Disney even bought Fox. That's how well that would have worked. Instead, Paradox literally states that Wade's TVA summoning has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. And instead, the reasoning involves him vaguely being integral to future Avengers movies that haven't been written yet. That's why the TVA want him. Are you serious? On the one hand, it's ballsy and kind of funny to completely disregard that setup, but the actual reason would have to be really well thought out to justify that. Unfortunately, it's about as intelligent a reason as the Blade Trinity script. The whole concept of the anchor being is also mind-numbingly stupid. First off, congratulations X-Men fans that thought Wolverine was overexposed in the movies, because he is now, canonically, the centre of the Fox universe. The idea that a universe dies when an anchor being dies doesn't work because, well, any anchor being is going to die if you wait long enough. The TVA exists outside of time, so isn't every universe dying? Every universe's anchor being is going to inevitably die, or has already died, however you want to look at it. You can't have the entire existence of existence hinging on one person staying alive. What happens if Wolverine slips on a banana peel? The whole thing dies? Come on. It's so weak. The Foxverse is lucky Wolverine is immortal. What if it's just a random Tom, Dick or Harry off the street with an average lifespan? Good luck getting your universe past 80. I enjoy the metatextual idea that once Hugh Jackman was done, so was the Foxverse, it trailing on fumes with Dark Phoenix and New Mutants, but it's not juicy enough of a metaphor to justify such a weird nonsense story beat. I hate that already anchor being is a term being thrown around with speculation that any and every heavy hitter A-list MCUer could be the sacred timeline iteration of Logan. The biggest prevailing ones I've seen on social media are Tony Stark and Peter Parker. I just think it makes each universe so ridiculously small. The heroes we've been following, well, it turns out they're objectively the linchpins to existence itself. Screw complicated villain motivations, the MCU baddies should cease all operations just in case they cap an anchor being and essentially doom themselves. Iron Man has doomed himself, we don't need more of that. Martin Scorsese infamously said all the way back in 2019 that the Marvel movies are more akin to theme parks than real cinema. Whilst it was a highly contentious issue, it's easy to see where he's coming from, considering how much blockbuster cinema has swallowed up everything else around it. I really wish he hadn't called them not cinema, because I think the salient and fair points he made were completely ignored in favour of asking whether or not Marvel movies are literally cinema. Of course they are cinema, that wasn't really what he was getting at. Either way, when he said they were theme parks, we were coming off the back of the Iron Man to Endgame run, a run that prioritised making us fall in love with the characters above all else. A run that took time to bring everyone together, that centred all the hype on seeing these heroes face earth-shattering consequences and fight iconic villains. The big finale twist of Civil War was Tony learning that Steve knew Bucky caved his dad's head in and choked his mother to death mere moments after watching it happen on a videotape.
I just did you know. Yes.
That was all about breaking their relationship for dramatic purposes in the subsequent films, and that was what all the hype was hinging on coming out of the movie. As soon as Scorsese made those comments, it felt like Marvel decided to make his theme park comparison 10 times more applicable than it ever was before. The biggest and most popular Marvel movies post-Endgame have all centred around cameos. Guessing the cameos, seeing the cameos, clapping and hollering at the cameos, no matter how much sense they make or how well delivered they are. It's gone to the point where even the poorly received and poorly realised characters get a cheer. Does anybody really care about this Black Bolt and this Elektra? Yet both times I saw them pop up, everybody clapped and hollered and lost their minds, and I have to say, I know for a fact some of you in those theatres don't know who the fuck they are. It's gone to the point that the clapping and hollering is a staple of going to see these movies, and it's predicated on who will turn up in the frame rather than what they might be doing. Case in point, the best cheer I ever experienced during a Marvel movie was Cap picking up the hammer. At no point did that audience elation involve a cameo. It was a payoff to a years-long tease. If a character was being introduced, the hype wouldn't be the surprise, it would be how they would be adapted into the MCU and what story would be told. Remember how hyped we were for them to introduce Scarlet Witch or Ultron or Black Panther or Thanos? None of that was about nostalgia or legacy or keeping a secret. We loved it. I would argue harder than any of this stuff. It's just easy to forget years later. The worst Deadpool joke in the movie was when he broke the fourth wall and said, "Watch out, nerds, this is about to get good," right before he fought Wolverine. I mean, I just think personally, you can't say that, Deadpool. I'll be the judge of whether this is good or not, thank you. Using the fourth wall breaks to flex is not cool. Having said that, I think in general, Deadpool is funnier than I give him credit for. I'm never that sold on the gags in the trailers for these movies, and then when I'm in the cinema, he always manages to get a hefty amount of giggles out of me. However, he is a character whose comedy braces a fine line between funny and cringe, and when he misses, boy does he miss hard. I love Madonna's Like a Prayer in this movie, but aside from that, I did not find the needle drops in this movie funny. The first NSYNC one was good because it was contrapuntal, Deadpool's dancing was fun, and it's a reference to X2, the joint greatest X-Men movie ever.
What are you doing?
Do the kids nowadays even know this is a reference? From there, all the needle drops with the same joke. Isn't it funny that what's happening is serious and or extremely violent, but the song choice is silly, camp, and upbeat? It's just the same gag, over and over again. If you're going to play a bit of The Greatest Showman, have some balls and play the whole song over the fight scene at least. Don't cop out and go for Greased Lightning instead. It's a strange choice, truly bizarre, that Deadpool is now in the MCU with hundreds of characters at his disposal, and he meets Happy Hogan and Hunter B-15. Paul makes a huge song and dance about finally jumping universes, and yet he never meets a single MCU superhero. The context of having the 2000s Heroes in the Void makes sense, but goddamn, we don't meet a single MCU variant at least? I'm sorry, 2 seconds of the Hulk and Thor on a video camera. Deadpool's costume is one of the very best in superhero land, achingly accurate, and in a time where every hero gets a constant makeover, the series has stayed consistent. The biggest change to this iteration is a bit of gold here and there, and a more vibrant red, but the core design principles are all the same. Also, the suit-up scene with the tailor was hilarious, and I wish the comedy came more from the editing like that. Wolverine's suit, I've seen a lot of bitching. Honestly, I think it rocks. It's not over-designed. It looks like what a live-action yellow Wolvie suit would look like in the MCU. The mask slapped. I even loved him fully sleeved. I don't get why he lost the shoulder pads. The Hot Toys figure proves that keeping them would have been a tad better for the sleeveless masked-up look, but it's a minor quibble. Let's dive into the characters, from Deadpool to Wolverine to the villains to, yes, finally, the cameos! The cameos!
I am Marvel Jesus.
I'm not really a huge Deadpool fan. He's alright. I do like him and I do find him funny most of the time. As I said, sometimes he's a bit cringe-inducing, but for the most part, solid. He's not one of my boys though, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have been that heartbroken if the films ended when Fox did. They were good, but I think he really struggles as a character leading a story past his origin. This was most evident in the second film, when they had to give him a potential supervillain child to take care of, so the audience had some attachment, and Deadpool had something he wasn't going to be completely snarky about. A character like Deadpool is one of the most powerful characters in the entire superhero pantheon. He knows it's all a farce. He breaks the fourth wall, and he has insider knowledge, foreknowledge of events that make him more like a godly, Q-like figure in any universe he's placed in. He knows who Thor is, even though he's never met him. He knows who the mysterious outer universe being Kevin Feige is. He's read ahead of the script 9 times out of 10. Because of that, it's hard to sell us on the more regular aspects of his life. It's hard to give us tension with this character. His whole storyline with Vanessa across the sequels has partly shown this. In part 1, he has to get her back. Great, romantic reunion, yay! In part 2, she is immediately fridged so she can sit out the entire movie because they didn't know what to do with her, and then she was brought back in the post-credits scene. And to that post-credits credit, that was a really funny move. In part 3, she's broken up with him and is dating somebody new. What? After all that? And then, surprise surprise, it's implied they repair the relationship at the very end. So basically, that was just the exact same conceit as Deadpool 2. The plot writes are out long enough to have Deadpool do his own thing before he falls back into her arms as the credits roll. This time, it's not just Vanessa that gets the short straw, but every supporting character from Deadpool. Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Yukio, Dupinder, they all end up serving as, ironically, cameos. It works that they're the driving force for Deadpool to save his world, but it whiffs of Quantumania suddenly dropping the whole cast for the threequel. And where the hell was Cable? Where the hell was Zazie Beetz? Please return my calls. And where was TJ Miller? Oh, never mind. In lieu of Deadpool stagnating, they've brought in Wolverine to do a lot of the emotional heavy lifting. He's kind of the new Russell in this movie.
This Wolverine let down his entire world.
The biggest difference between the two legacy Marvel goats, Toby and Hugh, is obvious. In Tugboat's return, he was established as the same version from his original films. In this movie, Logan is very clearly not the same one we knew, but a variant. It wouldn't have worked to have a random Toby variant, since his narrative was always a straight line, and we left him almost 20 years ago now. But Logan has been all over the shop anyway. I always saw X-Men Origins as slightly adjacent, because none of the Weapon X set or backstory lined up with what we were told in the previous movies. Same with X-Men First Class to a degree until they tied it together in Days. Logan, yeah, I know everyone says it takes place after Days of Future Past, but that's always made no sense to me. I've always been more satisfied with it as a slightly divergent Elseworlds timeline. The deleted scenes canonise it as taking place in the Last Stand timeline anyway, and the dates for mutants disappearing in that timeline break the established canon of having students in the X-Mansion in Day's final scene. Basically what I'm getting at is that the X films have already basically had Wolverine variants, as many as 4 potentially, and the Deadpool side of things barely even matches up. I mean, just look at Colossus. There's at least 2 Colossus Fox variants. These guys are nothing alike. So I really didn't mind that this was a slightly different Logan. It worked. Although it's funny that they used stock footage of the original Wolverine from the earlier films during his Casanova mind meld. Where is he pulling that from? In the 2010s, Batman saw a key comic storyline about an older version of the character adapted twice, one after the other. Elements from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns made it into The Dark Knight Rises, and then Batman v Superman. In essence, we got a weathered Batman back to back. And here, Wolverine has had a key comic storyline about an older version of the character adapted twice, one after the other. 2017's Logan clearly pulled from Old Man Logan, albeit in a more grounded fashion without MCU staples like Red Skull and Hawkeye. And now in Deadpool and Wolverine, the comparisons continue. A broken Wolverine, ashamed of his past, finds himself in a Mad Max-esque world with a giant Ant-Man corpse to boot. Old Man Logan himself even makes a cameo.
Cameos.
I love 2017's Logan, but the grounded nature of it meant we missed out on the best plot point of the source material. So even though it felt like retreading familiar ground, I was kind of gassed at all the Old Man Logan trailer comparisons, because now, in a more heightened comic book world in this movie, that particular plot point that I love could finally be adapted. The final trailer, aside from spoiling a character return that was incredibly annoying, played well with me because it felt like Wolverine's arc was going to be pretty well handled. In the actual movie, it's pretty hollow and ill thought out.
I told you, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome anywhere.
This Wolverine is so utterly heartbroken, alcoholic, and hated by everyone that he must have done something awful to warrant such a dour demeanour. Succession even says that this Wolverine is the worst one, a variant that let down his entire world. Whatever could he have done? In the trailer we saw him falling to his knees by a line of gravestones, and we all assumed it was the X-Men. Oh my god, it's happening, it's actually happening. The most awesome and awful beat from Old Man Logan is coming to the big screen. So Wolverine, it turns out, did a Donna Noble and just missed the X-Men's final battle because he was drunk. I mean, not really that bad, to be honest. Sure, he could have been there, but this is just survivor's guilt type stuff. There's no reason to suggest that he could have stopped their murder if he was there, considering the team is comprised of some level 5 Omega mutants, and they still got beaten. I feel like the film knew this was a weak reveal, so they had to beef it out by having Wolverine say in his revenge he killed those responsible, but also humans who had nothing to do with it. People just got caught in the crossfire. Weak as hell, in my opinion. I don't think any of that justifies all the build-up or his change of heart. Maybe this could have worked if we had, stay with me here, seen any of it. But we don't. This is all told never shown.
Wanna talk about what's haunting you, or should we wait for a third act flashback?
I love that Deadpool says, shall we wait for a third act flashback? And no flashback ever arrives. Sure, you could argue it was the scene inside Logan's mind at the gravestones, but that provides no visual context to what actually went down, and presumably these gravestones still exist in his world in the present, so Cassandra might not be transporting him to a flashback whatsoever. She could just be transporting him to the present moment. Just really weird to hang a lantern on that and then never follow it up. Much like Deadpool's time travel TVA connection from the second movie, I feel like pulling his plight from Old Man Logan would have been a slam dunk, an open goal. If you don't know, and final spoiler warning, Wolverine has the battle to end all battles with his entire rogues gallery, only to discover that it was all an illusion by Mysterio, and he actually killed all of the X-Men. If that sounds epic to you, I promise it's 10 times more epic in the comic. Imagine if they adapted that in a flashback at the end. Casanova goes digging around in his brain, and we reveal that all of his pain and torment comes from the fact he was tricked into killing the X-Men. We get an awesome action scene where Logan fights every key rogue in his movie history before we cut to reveal the truth and the slain X-Men before him. It could have been the best MCU action scene in history, and I would have so totally bought why he was so damn grumpy and heartbroken off the back of that.
Go fuck yourself.
One final point, Reynolds and Jackman are literally friends with Jake Gyllenhaal. We could have so easily had the Master of Illusion show up to do this, and it would have actually meant seeing an MCU character interacting with the Foxverse. But honestly, that is the fanboy in me talking, because it could have easily just been Cassandra Nova, and that probably would have tied things up way better. Imagine the strength of that villain if Wolverine saw her and immediately got traumatic, rage-inducing flashbacks to what she tricked him into doing. Deadpool and the audience are left to wonder until it all becomes frighteningly clear in the third act. Instead, she is quite a weak, one-note dynamic to our heroes.
You were an X-Man. He's a hero in my world.
I cannot believe, canonically, the end of Logan is followed up with Deadpool digging up Wolverine's grave, having a conversation with his bones, and then desecrating his corpse to end sync. You have to admire it to a degree, and Ryan Reynolds will actively make a joke out of anything you might deem sacred. There's even a preemptive jab at the internet about the treatment of Logan canon, so he's done me in before I even speak in this video, to be honest. It's weird, and I can't imagine being James Mangold watching this, but the cat was out of the bag the moment Hugh Jackman came back. It's Deadpool, it exists in its own bubble. I can ultimately separate the two and just ignore what happens after the credits roll on Logan. And I made a video about this all the way back when it got announced, and none of you seem to care, so who cares anymore? It is also forever insane that Laura, aka X-23, aka Logan's daughter from the final film, that dark and gritty final film, grew up to become a prisoner of the Void and met Deadpool. This Laura met Blade. This Laura met Elektra. Just let that sink in for a moment. That is one of the most credulity-stretching tonal shifts the MCU has ever attempted. Her role in the movie is fine, but she doesn't get that much to do considering how central she was to Logan, although it is mighty existential that she was a kid and now enough time has passed that she is old enough to be a fully fledged superhero with a spin-off movie. Where have the last 7 years gone? I did not need her to wear the sunnies from Logan, and it would have been more awesome if she'd have donned a suit of her own, but it doesn't really matter. I love that this movie did a living tribute to the screwed up timelines of the Foxverse. Logan takes place in basically an apocalyptic world where everything is screwed in 2029, and this movie tries to imply that Deadpool is living in the same universe post that. So why does it seem like he's living in a fine and dandy 2024 with Peter? Where is he in the timeline? Why does the world seem fine? I understand just making the Foxverse one timeline for the sake of the audience getting all this exposition at the TVA, but Logan doesn't even line up to the Days of Future Past canon, let alone Deadpool canon. There's no way this is all one universe, I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense for the characters, it doesn't make sense logistically, chronologically. Pre-Days and post-Days are divergent timelines. Logan is a divergent timeline, X-Men Origins is its own thing, and so is Deadpool. Otherwise, how else are there two Colossuses, and how the hell did the 80s X-Men end up in the present day in Deadpool 2? If this was in No Way Home, the whole plot would be getting cooked right now, but the priority for Deadpool is comedy, so nobody panics.
I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself. That goes for you all, too.
Yes.
Boys are so silly.
Casanova left a lot to be desired. Not really the fault of Emma Torrin, but the script gives her very little to do. The character has that problem where they're so powerful, it makes it hard to have your heroes faced off against them in any meaningful way. I liked using Juggernaut's helmet to block her power, but the whole beat of sparing her life did not play like the movie thought it would. A great example of the movie trying to stop the laughs and have a proper moment for a second, and it falling flat on its face. Sure, Charles would have shown her love and compassion, it's good to be kind and all that, but this is a psychotic mass murderer here. There's really nothing to be gained by sparing her life. It's not like Deadpool or Wolverine were the ones that shot her. I'm not going to kill you, but that doesn't mean I have to save you. It's also not like the two leads are against killing in general. 5 minutes later, they have no problem potentially killing every single Deadpool variant, one of which is a child. Wolverine goes on and on about Deadpool getting Johnny killed, but his actions cause Pyro to suffer the exact same fate. As soon as they spare Nova, she goes right back to being a full-on villain, learns nothing, and tries to end the multiverse, and she kills Pyro. Deadpool and Wolverine nearly die because of that decision. I'm all for a little mercy, but I think Casanova was too far gone and then some. She's like Paul Pot of the fucking Void, and you've got Logan over here like, we should be kind though, we should really let her off. Where Casanova is all-powerful and impossible to defeat without contrivance, Paradox is a comparatively weak, conniving little worm, and that's why he's so much more compelling as a villain. Watching him get tortured by her, only to see him try and wriggle his way out when Hunter B-15 arrives, bullshitting that he sent his two best men in to save the day, that's hilarious. It's always great to have a villain like that, one that has to sit on the edge of the web, pulling the strings, talking his way out. Don't get me wrong, neither villain was particularly great, but at least Paradox had some of a dynamic with Deadpool, and he was delightfully campy and silly.
What the fuck? Thank you for the chicken.
I love that Matthew McFadden just played Tom Wamsgams from Succession the entire time. I even kind of wish he had just used the same American accent, so I could see it as literally being Tom Wamsgams. The TVA recruit people and wipe their memories, right? This is exactly what Wamsgams would be like in the TVA. Wolverine has now fought two CEOs of Waystar Royco, and the film doesn't reference it, not once.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes! Yes!
Logan Roy made Logan. Succession even has multiple scenes with two strikers. There's several big Wolverine connections to that show, and I wish we'd have gotten at least one call out, but oh well. Wamsgams.
Fucking rats. Rats!
Let's go through all the cameos!
Cameos.
Yay! The Deadpool variants were really quite an afterthought, and I was surprised by that. They really just pop up for one action scene. After all the speculation about Lady Deadpool, it's funny that she didn't even get to unmask. It's kind of cool they got Matthew McConaughey in the MCU, but what a waste just giving us his voice in a bit part. You know who would have made a good Doctor Doom? That would have been pure, unfiltered hype? That fucking guy. Nice Paul was okay, I didn't find him that funny, but he was also sparingly used. The part where Deadpool used him as a human shield just reminded me of Austin Powers, which was noteworthy because 5 minutes later he cracked another Austin Powers gag.
Why don't I take the stairs?
The Cavalrine, terrible name. Honestly, this doesn't do much for me. I guess people did want to see Cavill as Wolverine, but if you're a full-blown stan, I can only imagine this is disappointing because it kind of excludes him from doing a proper MCU role in the future. I mean, he couldn't possibly come back to play someone else now he's already played a role, could he? It's a really weird decision to commit to every Wolverine being Hugh Jackman in the multiverse that Jonathan Majors play, and then have exactly one non-Jackman Logan in the montage. I feel like you either stick to it, or you give us all the what-ifs. Daniel Radcliffe should have been short Wolverine. I have a personal stake in this. You know what this would have done for me? This would have been huge. No more Harry Potter shoutouts in the comments. I could have done this for every Comic-Con and fancy dress and Halloween for the rest of my life. It's bloody annoying this didn't happen. Why the hell wasn't he short Wolverine?
Shut the fuck up.
Oh my god.
Taron Egerton, Cole Urban, just give me all the fan casts for fun. If you're going to break the ice with Cavill, just give me a bunch of names. It was cool to see the image of Age of Apocalypse Wolverine looking feral with that metal stump. The brown and tan Wolverine, costume looks so good. Patch looked cold. It was really cool to see all these guys, although again, I'm shocked they weren't given more time. I figured the Wolverine and Deadpool variants were going to be the focus over random goats from 1998, but I'm really not complaining about that. The Hulk vs Wolverine fight is exactly the problem with Marvel right now. They'll give you what you want, but not all of it. Just enough to whet your appetite and get the algorithms fired up after the screening, but not a full-blown scene, no. No, just give us 30 seconds of the damn fight. Show them coming to blows. Something. But no, just in case Marvel follow through with a Hulk vs Wolverine movie in 6 or 7 years' time. By the rate they're doing these solo sequels these days, we can't possibly give that to you now. It's frustrating, and the delayed gratification just feels like edging rather than saving something awesome for the appropriate time, given the appropriate build-up. So many MCU influencers said Chris Evans should come back as the Torch that you could hear them collectively jizzing their pants across the multiverse when he did a bait and switch, exclaiming "Flame on" rather than written and directed by Joss Whedon. And yeah, it was pretty cool to see an OG Fantastic Four member. However, I know this sounds silly, but I pray you get what I mean. The dude looked like Chris Evans, not Johnny Storm. I wish they'd have made him clean-shaven or something. It's like Keanu Reeves turning up in Matrix 4 with the John Wick hair and beard. I need a hair and makeup change to signify this is the other character, you know? It's a minor gripe, but look at how Wesley Snipes completely dissolves into the character of Blade behind those shades, and it's more than doable. There's also another thing. He got totally, utterly bitched up. I get it is all in the name of comedy, but did he really have to get so utterly owned by Pyro the way he did? I don't think the mutant is on the Human Torch's level. The dude went supernova in his first appearance in 2005. You're telling me he can't outstat Pyro? Although, just seeing what a Pyro versus Human Torch fight could look like after the pair showed up across 3 consecutive summers back in the day is the cool kind of surreal the multiverse saga can deliver. My man begged for his life and then got it the worst out of anyone in the movie with his flesh literally peeled off his bones. Look, I get you got to establish Casanova as a viable threat, but did it have to be my boy? Look at how they massacred my boy. The only way I can square this off in my nerd brain is that this is a bitch tier variant of the Johnny from the 2000s, but he's less a Logan, where we've seen a bunch of variants already, and more like a Toby, where we just have the consecutive appearances. It would feel like a cop-out to say that this is a variant. Still, I don't know if I can canonically want my childhood FF to end up dead and gone in the void like that. Blade. Oh my fucking god, they actually did it. They actually got Wesley Snipes' Blade back. He hasn't missed a step. If anything, Old Man Blade looks better than ever. The grey streaks in the hair and beard just looked way too cold. He kicked all kinds of arse too. I saw him eviscerate Lady Deathstrike, Toad, and Azazel. Just saying that out loud is insane. He did have a disappointing lack of interaction with Wolverine. That to me is what I want if we're doing the 2000s nostalgia run in Secret Wars. I don't just want Blade, Toby, and Wolverine to pop up. I want them to meet. I want them to have a rapport. I did actually love his outfit. Wolverine just cannot escape black leather, it seems. I never in a million years would have thought Blade would actually come back, and come back as awesome as this. I'm sorry, but with the character having the best line of the entire film, there's only one Blade, and there's only ever going to be one Blade, the MCU version is dead on arrival. Are you guys really telling me that you'd rather have this reboot that's been in development hell over 5 years instead of Blade 4 just picking up where this left off? It sounds like even Mahershala Ali wants out at this point, and to be honest, more power to him. I'd much rather see him in a ton of other movies. We finally got Channing Tatum's Gambit in a movie, and he was perfect for this kind of meta-comedy. Seeing Channing Tatum cracking jokes didn't give me nostalgia for his non-existent X-Men movie, but for the Jump Street films which have been MIA for a decade. Comedy Tatum is just goated. What's great about this appearance is he directly references how he could have been born in the void. He never got a shot to do anything. In many ways, he's the most like Sylvie of this legacy squad. He's got a bunch of hilarious lines, some painting more of a picture than others. What was it he said about shooting out of his dad's dick? I'm sure it's intentional for the joke, but Channing Tatum has way too much of a big head for Gambit. He just does not look right in that headgear. Tatum is a big beefy boy. I feel like someone leaner, like, well, Taylor Kitsch makes more sense as far as casting goes, to be honest, but for a one-off multiverse, and just because I love Channing Tatum in any comedy, and he cares about this character, this fucks. The voice was full on My Name Jeff, but it works for a Deadpool movie. I do wonder what his real Gambit voice would have sounded like, because obviously this one is very dialed up on purpose for the comedy.
My name is Jeff.
Elektra, yeah, this nostalgia cameo doesn't really do much for me. I think Ben Affleck's Daredevil should have been there, but obviously that might cause some friction. Side note, one of the best gags in the movie was Elektra reassuring Deadpool not to worry about her divorcee's untimely demise at the hands of Casanova. Not an awful lot else to say with this one. She was cool, but as I said before, it's a bit of a Black Bolt tier nostalgia cameo. I would get as much joy out of this cameo as any of the Fan 4 stick returning. Overall, I think some of these cameos bring joy, and they were used rather well in terms of all the legacy meta stuff. But I think the problem with multiverse cameos is you can never truly be satisfied. You always want more on some level. Before going into No Way Home or this, I was just hoping, praying we'd get Tobey Maguire or Wesley Snipes, and then you get it, only to wish you'd gone a little bit more. It's hard having leading superheroes that carried some of the greatest movies in the genre cropping up for bit parts. You kind of want to go with them when they leave the movie, even if you're enjoying the main storyline. Another problem with these legacy cameos, something I've noticed about No Way Home and this, is to keep the surprise, you have to severely limit what the characters can do. They have to walk in on a closed set and crop up in a few other closed sets so the secret won't leak. Notice how Wolverine and Batman, two legacy heroes announced for their respective movies, get way more action and story real estate to play with. I know one has their name in the title, but my point is that if you dispense with the surprise, just get it over with, you usually end up getting versions of these characters that get more to do and will ultimately give you more after the shock has worn off. We got way more Jackman Wolverine than Tobey Spider-Man because of that. Because of the nature of filming these cameos, the characters often get restricted to just a few scenes where they can run into the leads, have a chit-chat, maybe punch someone. I think it would be funnier to insert them into the story in more unexpected ways. Like Vanessa, she's got a new boyfriend, right? What if we kept hearing about what a stud this new boyfriend is, and when Deadpool finally meets him, it's Johnny Storm, completely charming and effortlessly stealing Vanessa's affection to the chagrin of Deadpool. That would make me roll up. It fits perfectly with Johnny's character as a ladies' man, and he's the perfect guy to actually mug Deadpool off.
Oh, you're hot.
Why, thank you, so are you.
I'm stealing from the podcast on this one, but what if her boyfriend was an emo Peter Parker variant that never gave up the symbiote? Imagine emo Peter waltzing in, saying to Deadpool, "Now dig on this," before stealing his girl. That's the kind of cameo that only works in the meta-spun world of Deadpool, and I just wish the movie would just go a bit ballsier with stuff like that.
Gonna cry?
If it was a Toby variant who never gave up the symbiote, Deadpool and Wolverine could even kick his ass as he goes full Venom. You'd be getting a little taste of a Wolverine-Venom fight in the process. I'm spitballing here, but you get my point. I'd love for more characters to pop up organically, rather than just entering stage left as the leads traverse a wasteland.
Oh my god.
And then to close off with the cameos, we have all the heavies. I love that Deadpool Wolverine decides to bring back a host of Fox-Men heavies, and even one or two from other franchises like Daredevil and The Punisher. It allowed Team Pool to have a proper face-off with a gauntlet at the end, rather than just seeing them face an army of nondescript henchman clones, as is so common in Marvel movies. However, it is really fucking funny that the movie couldn't seem to bring back most of the actors who played those roles. You've got Aaron Stanford's Pyro, a welcome addition and the character was basically the same as ever. You've got Tyler Mane as Sabretooth, and that's it. Juggernaut, no Vinny. Azazel, no Fleming. Ray Toad, no fucking chance. No authentic Kelly Hugh Deathstrike. Bullseye looks so different that fans thought it was CW Blade turning up. Nope, that's Bullseye. The Colin Farrell Bullseye. The thing is, they are all just there to get done deaded. The only ones who speak are the ones who are played by their actors, so it kind of works. And I'd rather Blade was authentically Wesley Snipes in person if it meant the baddies were all no-names. However, it is a bit strange that Deadpool doesn't really make too many jokes about this. He calls Not Vinny Juggernaut of the Week, and that's about it. Surely Deadpool, of all people, would be calling this casting mishap out way more. The other thing that's weird is that since none of the Fox X-Men appear, it means that all the background bad guys get more screen time and presence in this movie than the A-list heroes. Aaron Stanford's Pyro's in this movie, but Cyclops, Jean, Storm, Beast, Magneto and Xavier only get mentions. I bet you never thought you'd be thinking that. Toad entered the MCU before Magneto. When I made my Juggernaut retrospective, a lot of you told me that it's ridiculous to think Wolverine could land a single hit on Juggernaut, but I put it to you, how is it so okay to see him fight the Hulk, but for some reason, Juggernaut is above his pay grade? Even if he loses to both, he's going to get some damage in. He's practically unkillable, and he has unbreakable claws. Come on, I think you're all doing Wolverine pretty dirty here. I'd rather gargle Juggernaut's Juggernuts than have to listen to that cap again.
It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right.
Easily the best part of the film is the end credits, and I don't mean that in a smug, common comment section joke kind of way. You know, people are like, the best scene is the end credits, ha 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 ha. The BTS montage set to Green Day at the end is a little emotionally manipulative, yes, and it is still weird all in all to mourn Fox getting swallowed up by Disney, but damn. I lived through the 2000s golden age of comic book movies, and I loved the X-Men in particular. It was a joy to see all the highs without shying away from the lows like the misshapen F4 movies. Even Fan 4 Stick was in there. Overall, the edit for this montage is so good, cutting between young and old versions of characters, recasts, action beats that match up well, interspersed with interview footage from Reynolds and Jackman. I'd be lying if I said it didn't get to me a little bit. Movies really help to shape you, especially as you're growing up, and I think I definitely owe something to the Foxverse and the X-Men movies. This montage feels like the biggest love letter to that era, more so than the movie itself, which is a shame. I'm shocked that out of all of the legacy players, we didn't see a single X-Man. I don't mind the lesson you can't change your mistakes, you gotta live with the past, yada yada, but I was pretty sure this Logan would be reunited with the X-Men at the end. I wait to see the old cast just for the payoff of seeing them one last time if we're truly saying goodbye. Not just for the gratuity of them popping up and clapping. In a movie that gave me Jennifer Garner's Elektra, I would have thought the Patty, Stew and McKellen X-Men would have been a slam dunk, but apparently not. Much like Hulk vs. Wolverine, I can only assume Marvel are holding off to use these X-Men fully in Secret Wars. Then again, I thought the most recent Doctors sat out of the Centenary Special because they were being saved for the 60th, and then that rolled around and there was no Smith or Capaldi. So maybe, just maybe, these companies should just give us the characters when they can give it to us. They should have just given us the X-Men now, in case Marvel changes gears at the 11th hour for the next Avengers movie. Again, what did you think of the cameos? Because I'm really quite intrigued to know what ones played well, and what ones, if any, did not. Obviously, you all loved Blade. I won't hear a bad word about Blade. If somebody didn't enjoy Blade in this movie, they're not a patriot.
Let's fucking go!
Let's fucking go.
Has Deadpool saved the MCU? Well, financially it's been a roaring success, critically not so much, but the industry stopped brazenly praising Marvel movies years ago. The fans have enjoyed it, but I think now that characters like Wolverine and the yesteryear Spider-Man and Blade and so on and so forth have been introduced with shock surprise cameos, now is the time to lean back on what could really save the MCU. Seeing those heroes we love in action adventures that give us stakes. The surprise is done with all these legacy heroes now. We know they're all but confirmed for Avengers 5 and 6, so dispense with the theme park-esque clapping for scraps of scenes of these heroes and make them an integral part of the story. Just treat them like you treat all the characters from the Guardians to the Avengers to Doctor Strange and Infinity War and Endgame. What would be interesting for them to do? What challenges should they face? What should their arcs be? Who should they have good dynamics with? Who should they have conflict with? If the MCU can lean back into that, now that a lot of the pieces on the multiverse board are where they should be, then maybe, just maybe, the next 2 Avengers movies can be awesome.
We give you the one person who could play Victor Von Doom.
There is, of course, one spanner in the works, one huge, potentially catastrophic spanner. Over the weekend, there was the aforementioned announcement that Kang is going to be replaced with Doctor Doom as the big multiverse saga big bad. Honestly, why didn't they lean into the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom right from the start of Phase 4? We should be at least 2 movies deep with them by now. They should be leading the multiverse saga like Iron Man, Cap and Thor led the Infinity Saga. Their comic book stories have been cosmic journeys a whole bunch of times. It would have been easy to have them assembling the multiverse heroes, akin to how Nick Fury did it back in the day. Now it all reeks of course correction, and the FF will be facing Doom in an Avengers team-up just a year after their debut, but what the hell? If FF, Doomsday and Secret Wars all deliver with a narrative that is a clear A to B, this could be great. They might just stick the landing. You're telling me we're getting the Avengers, Fantastic Four, the Spider-Men, X-Men, all of them versus Doctor Doom. The same year is the 20th anniversary of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Oh boy.
New mask. Same task.
All Marvel needed to do after this announcement was give us a top-tier actor to play Doctor Doom. And they did! Robert Downey Jr., recent Oscar winner, most recent Dr. Dolittle, has signed on to play Doom. The only problem is he's already played an armoured Marvel character.
And I am
Victor Von Doom.
So yeah, I hate it. Maybe there's like a 12% chance I'll be proven completely wrong on opening night of Doomsday, and the idea of RDJ Doom will totally work, but man, there's an infinite amount of other actors you could have used. Almost every fan cast of Doom ever made has been somewhat decent. There's even other actors in the MCU that would have been less of a continuity issue to cast. People have often pointed to Ben Mendelsohn. Sure, he was a Skrull for 5 minutes, but who really cares about that? He's a great actor who was wasted in the MCU. Downey was never wasted in the MCU. He was the Wolverine of the MCU, the one superhero who remained the face of a team throughout his entire run. He was arguably the main character of the Infinity Saga. To have him back as the big villain just reeks of stunt casting. It reeks of desperation. And to be honest, it's the exact same shock reveal we've grown accustomed to within the actual movies. You just didn't need to do this. You could have gone the traditional route and it would have been fine. Better than fine. It would have been great. Imagine Matthew McConaughey Doom getting announced versus all of these legacy heroes. RDJ surprising Hall H is not so far removed from any legacy hero jumping out of a portal. The entire gimmick is hanging on the fact that we recognise that face. It feels like it would have been so easy to get everyone on side with Avengers Doomsday by casting a cool actor for Doom. That's literally all Marvel had to do, but instead they hit the panic button and went crawling back to Downey for a reportedly absolutely extortionate amount of money. Iron Man once fought Thanos. Our Kang storyline is fucked. What's the next best thing? What if Iron Man is the next Thanos?
Genius.
Everything about the next Avengers double bill announcement is as safe as possible. The Russos returning, RDJ back. But ironically, the one thing they should have done was go even safer with the casting of Doom. Hell, I would have preferred the blanket villain casting of Mads Mikkelsen or Giancarlo Esposito's Doom over this. We all knew, let's be frank, that Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans have been a lock for Secret Wars ever since it was first teased. As much as I like superheroes to leave the silver screen with finality, we gotta be realistic. If Hugh Jackman is back, there ain't no way these two weren't gonna return. If the Comic-Con announcement had just been, hey, the Russos are back, we're playing it safe, Avengers 5 is Avengers Doomsday, we're playing it safe, it's gonna be the Avengers, the FF, the Thunderbolts, and more, versus Doom, and there's only one Avenger who can possibly help. Then they cut to the reveal that RDJ is back safely as Iron Man. Make no mistake, that would have all been kind of lame too, but it would have been a lot less lame than stunt casting. Now either Iron Man is sitting this whole thing out where everybody else is back, or we're getting double Downey. Iron Man turning up in Secret Wars to fight Iron Man Doom. I don't like the idea of either. If Marvel just announced Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and Chris Evans' Cap as the first of many character announcements for Doomsday, promised the casting of Doom would be revealed soon, and given us the release date, I'd be worried given the current state of the post-Endgame MCU, but still, I'd be lying if I wouldn't be a little bit excited. But this, I have to jump through so many loopholes to try and get into it, and judging from the reaction, it seems like many of you are the same. We've kind of been robbed of a simple, classic Doctor Doom, not an evil Tony Stark variant, or a Doctor Doom that all the Avengers will look at, unmasked, and go, Mr. Stark, is that you? I digress. One thing is for sure, with the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, the MCU just got a hell of a lot more interesting again. The next few years are going to dispense with the endless character introductions and meandering story beats, and give us something big, full of the characters we all want to see, for better or for worse. I will be watching, because there's still team-ups that could be awesome, or, on the flip side, it could all be a beautiful train wreck that finishes off the MCU for good. Either way, it seems like Marvel Studios are getting attention, they're getting bums in seats, so in the short term, I guess Deadpool and Wolverine as a stratagem will save the MCU after all.
Nope, I'm actually okay, thank you very much.
What do you think of RDJ Doom? Awesome casting, a terrible gimmick, something you want to wait and see for? Would you have preferred a more straightforward casting? And what do you hope for the story of Doomsday and Secret Wars? Let me know in the comments below. Oh my god, I wrote so much about this movie, this is such a long video. Oh, it is so hot today. As always, a big thank you to TDW Fan and Dr. Chike for keeping the lights on, for being my full fat tier patrons. Thank you very much. If you want to get early releases of my videos, or catch up on my latest reviews of Doctor Who, including Dot and Bubble and 73 Yards, then head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos.